I think this is the first time she's ever talked in detail about his death.
Riley Keough just won. That's the part nobody's talking about enough. After one of the most painful, public, emotionally brutal legal battles a family has ever been forced to fight in full view of the world, Riley won. She secured her mother's estate. She honored Lisa Marie's final wishes. She stood up to her own grandmother in a courtroom, and she did not blink. And for a moment, just a brief, fragile moment, it looked like the Presley family might finally get to exhale. Then Priscilla Presley announced she was writing a book, and everything caught fire again. Now, before you write this off as celebrity gossip, before you tell yourself this is just family drama that has nothing to do with you, I need you to understand something. This is not about a book. This is not about a grandmother and a granddaughter having a disagreement about how to handle grief. This is about power. This is about who gets to write history. And in the Presley family, history has always been the most valuable thing on the table, worth far more than Graceland, worth more than the merchandise empire, worth more than any trust fund or legal settlement. Because history lasts. History shapes everything that comes after it. And Priscilla Presley has controlled the Presley family's history for 50 years. Think about what a memoir actually is. Not the cover, not the press tour, not the carefully rehearsed sound bites on morning television. Think about what a memoir actually does in the world. It becomes the record. It becomes the version of events that journalists quote. It becomes the thing that documentary producers use as source material. It becomes the story that gets taught, repeated, believed, and built upon for decades. A memoir is not a book. A memoir is a declaration of ownership over a narrative. It says, this is what happened, told by someone who was there, and this is now the official version. And Priscilla, who has spent 5 decades positioning herself as the only credible voice on anything Presley, is about to put her version of events into permanent ink. At this exact moment. Right now. After Lisa Marie is gone and cannot respond. After the legal dust has barely settled. After Riley has just spent months fighting publicly just to honor her own mother's wishes. The timing is not an accident, because here's what you need to understand about how Priscilla Presley has operated. She has never made a move without understanding its strategic value. Every interview, every documentary appearance, every executive producer credit, every carefully chosen magazine cover, none of it was random. All of it served a purpose. All of it added another layer to the same carefully constructed story. Priscilla, the devoted ex-wife. Priscilla, the reluctant businesswoman who saved a crumbling empire. Priscilla, the faithful steward of Elvis's memory. Priscilla, the only person who truly understood what he would have wanted. That story made her powerful. That story made her wealthy. That story made her untouchable, because when you become synonymous with someone's legacy, attacking you means attacking them. And nobody wants to be the person who attacked Elvis. Riley knows all of this. She grew up inside it. She watched her mother navigate it. She watched Lisa Marie spend her entire adult life trying to assert herself within a family structure that Priscilla had engineered so that Priscilla always remained central. And then she watched her mother in her final years, in her final legal documents, in the most deliberate and clear-eyed act of her life, draw a line. Remove Priscilla. Say enough. Say not my children, not my legacy, not one more inch. That was Lisa Marie's last act of defiance, and Riley fought to honor it, and she won. So ask yourself this. You're Priscilla Presley. You've just been legally removed from the trust your own daughter built. You've just had a court acknowledge Lisa Marie's intent to cut you out. You've just watched your granddaughter stand across from you in a legal battle and refuse to back down. Your grip on the Presley legacy, the grip you've spent 50 years building and defending, has just been formally loosened for the first time. What do? You don't retreat. Priscilla has never retreated in her life. You do what you've always done. You go back to the one weapon that has never failed you. You go back to narrative control. You write the book. You get out in front of the story before anyone else can tell it. You put your version of events into the world with your name on the cover and your authority behind it, so that when people search for the truth about the Presley family, what they find first, what they find most, is you. That's what this book is. That's the real reason Riley is angry. Because it's not just a memoir about Elvis. It's not just nostalgia, or a widow's grief, or a mother's memories. It's a preemptive strike. It's Priscilla in her late 70s with everything to protect and decades of practice at this exact game, making one more move to ensure that her version of the Presley story is the one that survives, the one that gets quoted, the one that shapes what people believe about Lisa Marie, about the estate, about what really happened inside that family, and about whether Priscilla was the hero or the villain of it all. And Riley is sitting with all of this, right now, as a woman in her mid-30s who has barely had time to grieve her mother before being thrust into a battle for her mother's legacy. As a woman who has already proven she's willing to fight, and who just learned the fight is far from over. Here's the thing about grief when it's weaponized by someone else. It doesn't just hurt, it enrages. Because grief is supposed to be yours. It's supposed to be private, sacred, the one space in the world where nobody can touch you. But when someone turns your loss into their opportunity, when someone uses the absence of the person you're mourning to advance their own agenda, that grief curdles into something much sharper. Riley isn't just heartbroken, she's furious, and she has every right to be, because her mother cannot defend herself now. Her mother cannot give an interview, cannot write her own book, cannot stand up in front of a camera and say, "That's not how it happened. That's not who I was. That's not what she did to me." Lisa Marie's voice is gone, and into that silence, Priscilla is about to speak. Loudly, authoritatively, permanently. And the question hanging over everything, the question that Riley is asking, that the family is asking, that anyone paying attention should be asking, is simple. Why would a grandmother write a memoir about a family that explicitly asked her to step away? Unless the memoir isn't about memory at all. Unless the memoir is the weapon. Lisa Marie Presley never got to tell her story. Not really, not fully, not in the way she deserved to. She gave interviews, she released music, she showed up on red carpets and answered questions with the particular kind of practice composure you develop when you've spent your entire life being the most famous child in any room. She was articulate, she was sharp. She was funny when people gave her the space to be, but there was always something held back, something contained, a version of the truth that lived just behind her eyes and never fully made it out of her mouth. And people noticed. Anyone who watched Lisa Marie carefully enough noticed that she spoke about her family, about her mother specifically, with a particular kind of caution. Not warmth, not bitterness. Caution. The kind of caution you develop when you've learned over many years and many painful lessons that certain things cannot be said out loud without consequences you're not prepared to face. Lisa Marie knew things. She had seen things. She had lived inside the Presley machinery from birth, had watched it operate from the inside, had felt its priorities shift around her in ways that left marks she never fully talked about publicly. She knew exactly how the estate had been managed. She knew exactly what decisions had been made and who had benefited from them. She knew why her financial life looked the way it did, complicated, troubled, riddled with debt. Despite the fact that she was the daughter of one of the most commercially valuable names in entertainment history. She knew all of it, and she couldn't say all of it. Not while Priscilla was still legally intertwined with everything she owned. So she said it the only way she safely could. She said it in a legal document. She said it in the amendment to her trust, the one that removed Priscilla Presley as a co-trustee and replaced her with Riley. The one that drew the clearest possible line between what Lisa Marie wanted and what Priscilla had been allowed to control for decades. That document is the most honest thing Lisa Marie ever said publicly, and almost nobody treated it that way. Because here's what that trust amendment actually was, stripped of all the legal language and the estate management framing. It was Lisa Marie Presley sitting down, not in anger, not impulsively, but deliberately after a lifetime of experience, and making a final definitive statement about her mother. It said, "I have watched you operate for my entire adult life. I have seen what you prioritize. I have felt the difference between being protected and being managed. And I am choosing, clearly, legally, on the record, to make sure you never have that kind of access to my children or my legacy. That is not the action of a daughter who felt loved and supported. That is not the action of a daughter who looked at her relationship with her mother and saw a safe pair of hands. That is the action of a daughter who felt, on the deepest level, that she had been failed. That the person who was supposed to protect her had spent decades protecting something else instead. And Riley knew all of this, not because someone told her, because she lived it beside her mother. She watched Lisa Marie navigate the complicated, exhausting reality of being Elvis Presley's daughter in a world where someone else controlled what that meant. She saw the weight of it. She felt the frustration that could never be spoken too loudly. She understood, without needing it explained, what her mother was actually saying when she made that final legal decision. This is why the book hits differently for Riley than it would for anyone outside the family. It's not abstract. It's not some distant celebrity drama she's reading about from the outside. It is her life, her mother's life. The private reality of a family that has been performing a public version of itself for half a century while the real version stayed locked behind closed doors. And now Priscilla, the person Lisa Marie finally, formally, decisively moved away from, is about to write the definitive account of all of it. In her own words, from her own perspective, with her own framing. Think about what that means for a moment. Lisa Marie spent years building to the courage of that trust amendment. Years of watching, enduring, calculating the cost of speaking up versus the cost of staying quiet. She finally made her move. She finally drew the line. And then she died before she could tell anyone why. She died with the full truth still inside her. That's the part that should stop you cold. Lisa Marie is gone. She doesn't get a rebuttal. She doesn't get to read Priscilla's memoir and call a journalist and say, "That's not accurate. Here's what actually happened. Here's what she's leaving out." She doesn't get to sit across from an interviewer and finally, with nothing left to lose, say everything she spent her life carefully not saying. Her silence is now permanent, and Priscilla is about to fill that silence with her own voice. That is what Riley is sitting with. Not just grief. She's been sitting with grief since January 2023 and will carry it for the rest of her life. What she's sitting with right now, on top of that grief, is the specific unbearable reality that her mother's story is about to be told by the one person her mother specifically chose to exclude from it. Priscilla's memoir isn't just a book about Elvis. It was never going to be just a book about Elvis. It's a book about the Presley family. It's a book about how that family operated, who held it together, who sacrificed, who committed, who was there through the hardest moments. And in Priscilla's version of that story, the version she's been telling for 50 years, the version she is now about to permanently commit to paper, Priscilla is the answer to all of those questions. She was there, she sacrificed, she committed, she held everything together. And Lisa Marie in that version was the complicated daughter, the difficult one, the one who needed managing. Riley knows exactly what's coming. She watched her mother spend a lifetime being managed by that narrative. And she is not about to let her mother be buried inside it. Let's talk about what Priscilla's memoir is actually going to say, because this is where it gets specific. This is where the danger stops being theoretical and starts being real. Priscilla has been telling the same story for 50 years. It has variations. It gets updated when circumstances require it. Certain details get softened or sharpened depending on what's happening in the news cycle, what legal battles are active, what public sympathy needs managing. But the core of the story has never changed. And that core is this: Priscilla Presley is the reason the Presley legacy survived. That's the foundation everything else is built on. She was the devoted partner, the one who understood Elvis better than anyone, the one who, even after the divorce, never truly walked away, not emotionally, not spiritually, not in terms of her commitment to what he had built. And then when he died and left behind a crumbling estate, a grieving daughter, and a financial situation that looked like a sinking ship, she stepped in. She made the hard decisions. She opened Graceland. She built the empire. She turned a tragedy into a legacy. That's the story, and it's a powerful story. It's a story that made her beloved. That made journalists treat her with reverence. That made ordinary people feel warmly toward her every time she appeared on a screen or a stage or a magazine cover to talk about the man she had once loved and never stopped honoring. It's also a story that, when you look at it carefully, when you hold it against the documented record, against the financial history, against the decisions that were actually made and who actually benefited from them, starts to develop very serious cracks. Here's the first problem with the book. Priscilla is going to talk about the estate. She has to. The estate is central to her entire legacy, her entire identity, her entire claim to being a Presley in any meaningful sense. And when she talks about the estate, she is going to present her stewardship of it as an act of devotion rather than an act of consolidation. She's going to tell the story of a woman who sacrificed for a family that needed her. But here's the reality she cannot fully explain away. Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis's only child, the sole biological heir, the person every single dollar of that estate was supposed to protect, died in financial devastation. Not quietly struggling, not facing a temporary setback. Genuinely, seriously, documentably in debt. Facing financial crises that should have been impossible for the daughter of one of the highest-earning celebrity estates in the world. How do you write a memoir about protecting Elvis's legacy without answering that question? How do you position yourself as the devoted steward of his family's future when his daughter, his only daughter, died without the financial security that legacy should have absolutely guaranteed her? You can't answer it cleanly, so you control the framing. You make the narrative about the macro, the millions of tourists at Graceland, the merchandise empire, the cultural preservation of Elvis's image. And you keep the camera away from the specific, personal, devastating reality of what Lisa Marie's financial life actually looked like. You make the story big enough that the most damning detail gets lost inside it. That's the danger of the book, not that it will lie outright. Priscilla is too skilled for that. The danger is in what it will strategically omit, what it will frame just slightly away from the truth, what questions it will answer loudly while quietly avoiding the ones that actually matter. Here's the second problem. Priscilla is going to talk about Lisa Marie. She cannot write a memoir about the Presley family without addressing her daughter. And whatever she says about Lisa Marie, however carefully worded, however apparently loving, will be said from a position of enormous narrative power. Because Lisa Marie cannot respond. Lisa Marie cannot give her own interview the week the book drops. Lisa Marie cannot post on social media to correct the record. Lisa Marie cannot call her own press conference. Whatever Priscilla says about their relationship, about their conflicts, about the trust dispute and what led to it, will exist in a vacuum. A vacuum Priscilla designed. A vacuum Priscilla is about to fill entirely with her own voice. And that is something Riley understands in a way that is not intellectual. It is visceral. It lives in her chest. Because she knows what her mother would say if she could. She knows the version of events that never made it into a press release or a legal filing or a carefully managed public statement. She knows the private truth of what that mother-daughter relationship actually felt like from the inside. And she is about to watch her grandmother present the authorized version of it to the world, permanently, in a format that carries cultural weight, in a format that people trust. Here's the third problem, and this one is about Riley directly. Priscilla's memoir is going to cover the trust dispute. It has to. It's the most significant Presley family event in decades. It was public. It was documented. It cannot be ignored. And when Priscilla covers it, she's going to frame it in a way that positions her legal challenge not as a power grab, not as a grandmother refusing to accept her dying daughter's final wishes, but as something else, something more sympathetic. A misunderstanding, perhaps, a mother's grief, a woman who simply wanted to remain connected to her family's legacy after everything she had sacrificed for it. That framing puts Riley in an impossible position, because in that version of events, Riley's decision to honor her mother's wishes becomes something smaller, something that can be reframed as stubbornness or youth, or the actions of a grieving daughter who perhaps didn't fully understand the complexity of what she was managing. It takes Riley's victory and repaints it as a mistake. And here is what makes all three of these dangers compound into something genuinely alarming. Books are not just read. They are asterisk-referenced asterisk. They are quoted. They become the foundation that the next documentary, the next biography, the next anniversary retrospective is built on. Every journalist who covers the Presley family for the next 20 years will have read this book, will have been shaped by it. Priscilla is not just writing her version of the story. She is building the architecture that future versions will be constructed inside. Riley isn't angry about a book. She's angry about the next 50 years. Here is what Priscilla Presley did not account for. Here is the variable that 50 years of narrative control never had to factor in, because it never existed before now. Riley Keough is not Lisa Marie. That is not a criticism of Lisa Marie. Lisa Marie was brave in ways that history will eventually give her full credit for. She pushed back. She drew lines. She made her final intentions absolutely clear in the most legally binding way available to her. But Lisa Marie also grew up inside a system that Priscilla built around her from childhood. She grew up learning, through experience, through consequence, through watching what happened when people in the Presley orbit stepped out of line, that there were costs to speaking too loudly, that certain truths had a price attached to them, that the safest version of survival inside the Presley machinery required a specific kind of careful silence. Riley grew up watching her mother carry that silence, and then she watched her mother die still carrying it. That changes a person. That doesn't just make you sad, it makes you determined. It makes you look at the inheritance your mother left you and understand that the most important part of it isn't the estate, isn't the Graceland royalties, isn't the legal authority over Elvis Presley Enterprises. The most important part of the inheritance is the truth Lisa Marie never got to say out loud. And what Riley does with that truth, whether she protects it, amplifies it, or lets it get buried again under someone else's narrative, that is the real legacy she's been handed. And Riley, unlike her mother, does not have the same constraints. She is not financially entangled with Priscilla. She is not legally subordinate to her. She is not navigating the complicated psychological reality of being someone's daughter while simultaneously trying to hold that someone accountable. Riley is the granddaughter, the generation removed. The one who can look at the full picture, the 50 years of control, the financial chaos Lisa Marie lived through, the trust dispute, the legal battle, the book announcement, and call it exactly what it is without the particular paralysis that comes from loving the person you're confronting. Riley won the legal battle. She has the estate. She has her mother's explicit, documented blessing behind every move she makes. She has the sympathy of a public that genuinely mourned Lisa Marie and is paying close attention to what happens to her memory. And she is in her mid-30s, which means, and this is the part Priscilla cannot strategize her way around, she has time. She has decades ahead of her to shape what people believe about this family, to tell the story correctly, to build a version of the Presley legacy that doesn't require erasing Lisa Marie to make room for Priscilla. Time is the one resource Priscilla does not have in abundance, and Riley has it in full. But let's be clear about something. Riley's power is not just about patience. It is not about waiting for the clock to do the work while Priscilla's influence fades naturally. That's too passive. That lets the book land unchallenged. That lets the narrative set before anyone pushes back. Riley understands something that her mother understood too late. In a battle for legacy control, the person who speaks first shapes the entire conversation. And Priscilla just fired the opening shot. So Riley has options, real ones. She has her own platform, her own public presence, her own access to the same media ecosystem Priscilla has spent decades cultivating. She has the standing to tell the Presley story from the inside, not as a grieving granddaughter seeking sympathy, but as the authorized steward of her grandfather's estate and her mother's final wishes. She has the receipts, the legal documents, the documented financial history, the trust amendment that says, in Lisa Marie's own legal language, everything Lisa Marie couldn't say in an interview. And crucially, she has the story that the public actually wants to hear. Because here's what has shifted in the culture around celebrity legacies in the last few years. People are done with the authorized version. They are done with the press-managed, estate-approved, PR-sanitized accounts of what famous families were really like behind closed doors. They want the truth. They want the complicated, uncomfortable human reality underneath the mythology. They want to know who Elvis Presley actually was, not the brand that was built around his memory. And the person best positioned to give them that is not his ex-wife. It is his granddaughter, the woman who carries his blood, who grew up inside the family he built, and who has every reason in the world to tell it straight. Priscilla built her power on being the closest living connection to Elvis. But that was always an argument that had an expiration date. Because the closest living connection by blood, by direct lineage, by the actual biological chain that Elvis himself created, that's not Priscilla. It was Lisa Marie. And now it is Riley, and her children, and her sisters. The Presley family is not running out. It is changing hands. And here is what that means for the battle over Priscilla's book. Riley doesn't have to write a competing memoir tomorrow. She doesn't have to call a press conference and deliver a point-by-point rebuttal. What she has to do is something both simpler and more powerful. She has to refuse to let the silence do Priscilla's work for her. She has to be present. She has to be vocal. She has to keep reminding the world, through every public appearance, every interview, every creative decision, every platform she uses, that there is another version of this story. That the authorized account is not the only account. That Lisa Marie Presley had truths that deserve to be heard even now, especially now, told by the daughter who knew her best and loved her most. That's what Priscilla is actually afraid of. Not a lawsuit, not a legal challenge, not another courtroom battle she has the resources to fight. She's afraid of Riley standing up in public and simply telling the truth. Calmly, clearly, without the constraints that kept Lisa Marie careful for decades. Because Riley has nothing to be afraid of anymore. The thing that kept this family quiet for 50 years, the financial dependency, the legal entanglement, the psychological weight of confronting your own mother, none of that applies to Riley in the same way. She has already faced Priscilla across a courtroom. She has already absorbed the worst of what that confrontation costs, and she is still standing. Priscilla's memoir may be the most dangerous move she has ever made. Not because it will succeed, but because of what it will provoke. For 50 years, the Presley family's silence was Priscilla's greatest asset. That silence is over. Riley is angry. Riley is prepared. And Riley, unlike every other person who has tried to challenge Priscilla Presley's version of history, has the name, the standing, the legal authority, and the unfinished truth of her mother's life behind her. This fight is just beginning, and for the first time in 50 years, Priscilla is not the one holding all the cards. If you believe Lisa Marie's story deserves to be told on Riley's terms, not Priscilla's, drop a comment right now and tell me where you stand. Share this before it gets buried, and hit subscribe because this battle is nowhere near over. What happens next with this book, with Riley's response, with the Presley legacy, you are going to want to be here for all of it.